Hey, what's up? Kalen here. In this video I wanted to talk about being too old to code, or too old to start a business, or too old to do anything really. I was reading a post recently where somebody was saying that they were in a particular industry where they were 35 and thinking about doing something entrepreneurial, and were worried that if they left that job, you know, they'd be too old to come back or too old to find a job in that industry again. And I've seen this type of sentiment expressed in different ways before, and I don't really buy it in general. I think about my experience when I was at the first company I worked at when I got into Magento, and I was probably the oldest dude there. I was probably in my late 20s, maybe 30. Maybe I was 30 by then. Yeah, I was probably in my 30s, and then everybody there was probably early 20s, and you know, I just got a lot of stuff done, you know, and then they would make jokes about it, like, what do you have, an army of people over there working for you, whatever. So I think at the end of the day, people care about what you get done. You know, sometimes that can be hard to measure, of course, and people do have biases and things like that. That's true. But I think at the end of the day, and one of the things that's interesting to me is that as software developers, or, you know, online entrepreneurs, whatever, like, we're knowledge workers, right? We're not, so if there's any type of a job that does where you can't work in that job when you're older, it's like physical labor, right? Just because of the nature of physical labor and people getting older and stuff like that. And the fact that like I could see somebody who worked in a physical labor job worrying about that, like, that's a real worry, you know? Whereas, like, as knowledge workers, by definition, we're working with our minds, you know, we're working with our knowledge. So it's a little crazy that we would be so concerned about you know, getting older and stuff like that, because you know, if anything, you should have more knowledge as you get older. You should have you know, a lot more tools to bring to the table. Now, that said, you know, there are definitely some things that happen when you get older. I mean, I recently had to get glasses, right? And, like, I can't work on the computer without glasses, and that feels a little weird. Yeah, you know, you don't quite have the same energy, you know, levels for certain things. But the other thing to me, and maybe I should do a whole video on this, but it's motivation. It's like, it's not about how much time you have. It's not about how old you are or how young you are. It's about how much motivation you have. Like, if you are super motivated, like, you'll get it done. You know, I think about, again, when I first got into Magento and got back into being a developer. I had been a project manager for 4 years at a job I really didn't like. I was really unhappy, and I stopped developing for 4 years. So I felt like, man, I don't know what I'm doing as a developer. But I had, for whatever reason, I had this motivation to figure it out, man. So I dove in and learned about Magento and just got up to speed really quickly. And motivation, you know, goes up and down over time. Like, to me, that's the thing I worry about, is like, what if I lose my motivation? Or if I'm working on a project and then I start to lose my motivation, like, how can I get that back? How can I find something that I'm excited about? Yeah, I love this shirt. It's a WeWork shirt, but it says "Do what you love," and I just love that. Like, I love that that expression. I think that if we can find what we really love to do, you know, there's really nothing that can stop us. So yeah, so at the end of the day, it's about motivation. If you're 60 years old, but you're super motivated, you're crunching it, you're really learning. And the other thing that probably happens as we get older is maybe as a general trend, is that we're less interested in learning new things, and we're more like, well, when I was a kid, you know, we wrote jQuery and HTML, and so because, for example, when I got into Magento, I was like, I want to learn this new platform. It was hard, it was frustrating. I spent 27 hours and had to read a book just to put a button on a product page, and it was hard, but I specifically wanted to learn and specialize in this new platform. Whereas like front end technology, like I haven't learned React, I haven't learned Vue, I haven't gotten into the like next generation of JavaScript front end stuff, and I've taken a couple stabs at it, but really haven't been that motivated to do it. Whereas I think if I were to, and I think about this from time to time, even though business stuff is going relatively well, I always think about, man, what's my plan B? What if I need to get a job? And if I needed to get a job, like I would probably go deep into like React or whatever and just figure it out in the same way I did with Magento. So yeah, it's really I think comes down to that. And so yeah, so maybe there is somewhat of a trend of, as people get older, they're less interested in learning new things. If somebody's been at a job and kind of just been phoning it in for a decade or so and not really learning, not really challenging themselves, then yeah, you probably are at risk for losing that job at some point in the future and then having a hard time getting a new job, right? But that's not a function, there's a correlation to age, but there's not the causation is in age. The causation is, are you really genuinely curious about what you do? Are you interested? Are you engaged? Are you learning? And that can happen if you're 60 or if you're 16, right? And it could be probably the same thing on the younger side. Like people might think, oh, you're too young, you don't know what you're doing. But obviously we see all these insane success stories from kids that are 14, 15. I think I saw this like 13-year-old kid working for Google, and just you watch the guy in video and it just blows your mind. So I think it comes down to, obviously talent is a factor. That's something that we can't necessarily change. You're kind of born with what you're born with, but working hard and being really motivated and really going for it. So I think those are really the real factors. At the end of the day, if you're 70 years old but you can crush you can crush front end Magento code, or you can crush an ERP integration faster than this 20-year-old, no one's gonna care. And if you're also easy to work, like if you're old but you're grumpy or whatever, like yeah, that might but if like no one's gonna care if you're easy to work with and you get work done, like so it's just funny, this whole knowledge. It's funny that knowledge workers are so worried about things outside of knowledge that would affect their ability to get work. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the topic. Let me know what you think. If you agree or disagree, post a comment, post a question, subscribe on YouTube, do your thing, and thanks so much for watching.